Hello, thank you guys for being here. I am Amy Marion, the Senior Field Partner Manager at RapidSOS, and we are so glad that you can spend part of your day here at Ready23. Ready23 is hosted by RapidSOS, and if you are not familiar, RapidSOS is an intelligent safety platform that securely links life-saving data to monitoring centers, 911, and first responder emergencies. So at Ready23, we aim to foster a sense of unity and shared purpose among stakeholders in the emergency response ecosystem. Ready23 is an opportunity to connect, collaborate, and catalyze change in the world of public safety and emergency response. We encourage you to actively engage throughout today and tomorrow on our virtual event platform, WOVA, and participate in the event through polls, question and answer, and chat. Today, we're joined by a panel of experts from both the business and the public safety side. Mike Rodgers, CEO of Critical Response Group, Captain Jennifer Miles of the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, Emergency Communications and Operations, and Officer Katelin Macken, Harris Township Police Department in New Jersey. So I'm going to let each of you guys introduce yourself, shed a little bit of light on why you're here talking about emergency response and mapping. Let's begin with Mike, if you don't mind, and then Captain Miles, I'll let you go right after him, and Officer Macken after Jen.
Well, Amy, thank you very much. It's wonderful to be back. I am Mike Rodgers. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Critical Response Group, a business I formed back in 2016 with the intent of taking a mapping technique off of the battlefield and initially applying it to schools, but now it's applied to all types of critical infrastructure across the country. We have either mapped or in the process of mapping a little over 11,000 public schools across the country, in addition to other events like the Super Bowl we did this year, Indianapolis 500. So really it's a technique that focuses on indoor mapping, but it's now spreading into multiple different verticals. And long time great partner with RapidSOS. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Captain Miles.
Hi, I am Jen Miles. As Amy said, I'm a captain with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office. We are located in Michigan. Sheriff Mike Bouchard is one of our biggest advocates on making sure that we have the best technology in our center. So I oversee our dispatch center of roughly about 100 people. We're one of the largest centers in Michigan, and having an opportunity to speak today about the mapping and about school safety is fantastic. We unfortunately have been in the position of not having it, and I can tell you that had we had access to maps like this, I think that we would have been able to just do a couple things a little differently that might have changed some things. So having that ability will be interesting, and I'm excited to be in the conversation today. Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here. Officer Macken, if you want to share a little bit about where you're from and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Patrolman Katelin Macken. I've been a patrol officer for 6 years, approximately 6 years. And my first 3 years, I was actually a school resource officer in our elementary school. So first 3 years of my career, I worked with pre-K to third grade. So kind of being on the hands-on standpoint of it, I dealt a lot with safety issues and tried to prevent them and work with the schools along with our jurisdiction to kind of get law enforcement and the business administrator on the same page. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. The discussion today is really going to kind of center around how critical response graphics, or CRG as we're going to refer to it as, the maps are helping support school safety response plans. As Mike and Jen, I think, both alluded to, they also help in many other types of situations. But we want to talk about how they can help in the school response plan as well as on a daily basis for those everyday response needs in schools and otherwise. And then how they provide that common operating picture that is so important for the field and the 911 center to be able to see the same situational awareness in the event of any type of emergency response. Mike, you kind of talked about it a little bit in your intro, but would you be able to elaborate a little bit for the audience, kind of a summary of CRG's mission, how it can and is providing safety to schools across the country, and why it's a priority in today's environment?
Great. Thank you, Amy. So a number of years ago, when we formed the organization, formed the Critical Response Group, we had an epiphany that a lot of the school floor plans are two things. They are inaccurate and they're also inaccessible to public safety. So upon realizing that unfortunate reality, we set down a path to try to solve that on a national level, which requires ultimately having to go on site to every single location, update the floor plans, verify them from a human perspective, gather the labeling, gather the key critical pieces of infrastructure, And then also working closely with our public safety partners to ensure that data is on file and integrated directly into the systems that they use every day. So that's why the RapidSOS relationship is so important to us, as they have, tremendous penetration and utilization with the platform across, the public safety answering points across the country. That was a very important partner for us to make sure that the data that we're building is integrated directly into the workflow that telecommunicator is using every day.
That's great. So Captain Miles, you kind of mentioned this also in your introduction, but can you kind of share how having that same mapping data available for both the 911 side and the field responders, as you have experience in both, can help improve those response times during a school emergency?
Yes. After I've been doing this now for 24 years, and I just joined the 911 side of things just a couple of years ago. And unfortunately, we did have a critical incident where maps and guiding people into an area became a crucial piece. Our people had paper maps. We were pulling out different PDF resources from places, but that didn't mean the responders in the field had that. When someone said, go to door 5, everyone was kind of like, okay, well, where is door 5? So having that additional component would have given us all the ability to say, okay, on the north side of the building, you're going to go to this grid square. This is where door 5 is at. Seeing how that could apply not only for schools, but also any of our large buildings, malls, indoor and outdoor mall spaces that have multiple entrances and exits, not only out of the parking lot, but into those different buildings, gives our first responders a lot of different ways to get to the same place. So if we can start guiding them in from multiple directions, all using the same language with the same PDF that is with, a true north on that map, it gives us the best output, the best information to them. It stays consistent. And then our field officers and our dispatchers are both speaking the same language then. So having that ability now it's wonderful. It's wonderful. So
that's awesome. So Katie, you've kind of had that experience as both the patrol officer responding to a school or other buildings, and then also in the school as a school resource officer. Can you share any examples or unique challenges that whether responding or being in the school that law enforcement faces when they're responding to a school related emergency?
Yes, ma'am. So I'll bounce off of what Captain Miles was saying. Being a patrol officer on the road, and they say it's by door 5 or by a different corridor, and if you're not a school resource officer, you're not familiar with the schools, you have no idea where you're going. And I know the elementary school that I was in, it was unique to the point where the front door was actually on the side of the building. So everybody had to go around to the side of the building in order to get to the front or the main office, even though we do have front doors. And with it being an older building, a lot of the doors aren't secured a lot of the time. So that's another worrisome thing, because people can go in and out. And we now know in 2023, whether active shooters, disgruntled parents, they're also an issue from time to time, whether you're patrol, you're an SRO. But being a school resource officer and knowing the layout of the building a little bit, where we had a lot of runners, pre-K to 3rd grade, kids got away from us a lot, or tried to, and then they would exit the school. So either they would exit the school, and the front of the building is one of our main roads, North Main Street in Harrison Township, or they may exit the rear, which is a big field. So knowing where the entrance is, and especially if someone called in for RapidSOS, whether it's a faculty member, maintenance, what have you, and they were able to see where the child exited, and we got that phone call, we will be able to narrow in on where the child exited the building, as well as different medical issues we had, whether a faculty member had a heart attack, a kid bumped his head, those kind of scenarios. It would definitely be very beneficial.
So those are some of the challenges with, kind of having that situational awareness. Mike, can you kind of describe in a little bit more detail how the mapping technology that you brought from the military side into, school safety, how that's solving some of those challenges that Jen and Katie alluded to from, where they are in the building, what entrance to go into, labeling and all that stuff?
Absolutely. So one of the big things is we look at, the starting point, the true nature of what is on file for these schools. It's everything from rolled up set of floor plans that are in architectural tubes covered in dust, to something that's being emailed around as a PDF, to a DWG AutoCAD file, and really everything in between. you have to initially understand whatever that school has, and that's your starting point with that raw data, and really accept it for whatever it is. So we initially take that information, and to Jen and Katie's points, a lot of those floor plans are not labeled in the nomenclature of the facility. It doesn't say where door 7 or classroom 3 or the art room is on that, but everybody on this knows better than I do that when someone calls 911 with an emergency, he or she is going to say, I'm having a heart attack in the teacher's lounge. And they're speaking in the site-specific vernacular of a structure that, one, the person who receives that call for service doesn't know what they're talking of, and two, they don't have a tool to assist them in that. So that's why it's important that we initially take that raw data and help it evolve to the point where it's labeled to match the site-specific nomenclature, and it's integrated directly into the systems and workflows that the public safety professionals are relying upon every day. And the other part is, as we talk about, the reality of the ground, a lot of public safety agencies are siloed in terms of their different technology that they have deployed. Creating a true common operating picture is a very challenging thing. Public safety and public safety software companies have been in pursuit of that for a number of years. The way that we're trying to solve that issue is a common operating picture through the content. The concept being that as long as everybody has the same exact content, everybody knows where door 5 is. We're speaking the same language by forcing everyone onto the same digital piece of paper. So it's not a simple fix, but it's a very complicated issue that we're trying to deal with as professionals in the industry.
Yeah, I think that's really important, having that common operating picture, both for the field and the 911 center. So they're speaking the same language, they have the same labels, they have the same nomenclature, like you mentioned. Jen, one of the things, we've had several conversations over the past, and you actually provide service as an ECC to an emergency communications center, for those who aren't familiar with ECC, to a fairly large area through Oakland County. You have a large number of communities you serve and a large number of school districts that you serve. Can you talk about why it's so critical to have similar and streamlined school solutions and mapping kind of in one platform to be able to have a cohesive response?
So that is accurate. We dispatch for 19 fire departments, 12 of our own contracted patrol areas, an additional 15 police agencies, a college, and our animal control. So we have a very large footprint of dispatch throughout our county. On top of that, we have 27 different school districts within the county, and we have overlapping school districts from our PSAP to other PSAPs. So having that information available to us, and that we can get available or make available to those other PSAPs in the same exact format, because we're all going to something if it happens. We're all going to that emergency throughout the county, whether our dispatch is the dispatch center sending the people, or it's multiple dispatch centers, we're going to it. So when you have that influx of first responders going somewhere, we want to make sure that they're all going to the same place, speaking the same language on the same system, right? So having that map available to us, being able to get it open, being able to push it out to our personnel and other personnel who might not work for the sheriff's office, they might work for a local police agency. Having that available to us is one of the things that will allow us to continue on and in the interoperability that we have. Within the center, Katie brought up a good point on how, if you get a 911 call to the gym or to the teacher lounge or to the whatever, and it's for a medical, that's the same idea. You're going to grab that map, and if you have a new person working in that area, or you're sending someone who's completely unfamiliar with that school, you can help guide them even to something that might be not as large as a massive critical incident. So having those maps on hand, easily accessible, it takes away a lot of the legwork to get there. And then you have proper orientation, because that's going to be the most difficult thing for most people. If you know which side of that building is north, or you can say, okay, that road that you're driving on right now is the front of the building, and we can tell that from that map, we're going to be able to get our people there in a way that we need to, and in the fastest, safest manner. So having it available become very critical.
And I think that having it available is really important, especially as you're talking about that mutual aid response that you're kind of alluding to, as multiple agencies are coming into maybe one school. Maybe they've never been to that school. It's not their primary jurisdiction, and they're responding. So Mike, Katie, I know both of you kind of have experience here, but as you have mutual aid coming into somewhere where they've never been, can you kind of speak, I'll let Mike start, kind of speak to how your mapping is solving that problem, And one of the things that RapidSOS can provide with that is the ability for agency share and chat to be able to share data or information that's in one agency's RapidSOS platform with another RapidSOS agency. So Mike, how does that help solve for those mutual aid responses?
So again, the concept being common content across all the different siloed systems. So we take a tremendous amount of time and effort is when we go and build the mapping data for, let's say, a high school, we're then working very closely with the public safety answering point that falls, jurisdictionally has responsibility over the top of that. Now we're integrating, through SOS, directly into, their environment. And then we're working with them, just like, Captain Miles is referencing, the amount of different agencies that she dispatches for, the other municipal agencies that potentially could respond to that location. The only ones who would truly know that information, would be able to assist us integrate across all those different platforms, are the public safety professionals in the region. So we work very closely with individuals like Captain Miles to understand, okay, these are the other 12 agencies. Can you please put us in contact with them? Then as we're talking with that specific agency, what computer-aided dispatch program are you using? What other situation awareness mobile applications or tools are you relying upon every day? What is the fire department using? And then it's a painstaking process to integrate directly into that environment that they use and rely upon every day. Because if we're not in the system that, public safety professional is comfortable using every day, they're most certainly not going to use it under a circumstance where they're under tremendous stress. So we want to make sure it's comfortable. It's a tool that they have muscle memory in, but it's really this integration efforts and the implementation team that we have, it's critical response group, that is just going department by department, system by system, and integrating directly into it. And then also helping to establish standard operating procedures at that individual department level of how often they have to touch the data, train the data, work off the data to make sure that they're all comfortable with it. So the content is one piece, but really the implementation through integration and through partnerships is, I would say, the biggest piece of how you solve the problem of enabling everyone to work together.
Yeah. So Katie, you're in New Jersey, and a lot of New Jersey is very populous and jurisdictions very close together. So as you kind of think about that and that mutual aid response, how does having that same operating picture, how has that helped your SRO officers or in the patrol officers as they have other agencies coming in? How has that helped your response?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, we work, especially when it comes to mutual aid, we work very tightly together, and a lot of our jurisdictional partners either live in the area or know the area just as well as we know their area. So especially with RapidSOS, like Mike was saying, the communication, the content, everything has to be precise, and we all have that same language, like Captain Miles was saying. But the details of it, one would decipher whether we need to implement a lockdown or shelter in place. So with RapidSOS, and we can form the communication, where it is in the building and where the civilians, because if it's in a recess, if all the kids are outside, that can determine what we're going to do, how to stop the threat, the possible, maybe the limit amount of civilians we do make contact with, or if it's a threat or get medical for that victim. So we work hand in hand with each other very closely with our local jurisdictions. And RapidSOS will be huge for that.
We're really focused right now on kind of that mapping piece and how that helps that response. But in RapidSOS, for those who might be listening and aren't as familiar with it as the group of us here are, not only are they getting that map and that kind of, common platform the 911 centers are using, but they're getting that location for that 911 call, populating, being able to be displayed on top of that CRG map that has those specific details and nomenclature. Weapons detection potentially coming in as a location on that particular map. And then as we talk about school safety platforms that we're also bringing in, that school safety request for service coming in, or an active assailant notification coming in that same operating picture. Jen, you mentioned at the beginning how having the maps now versus not having them previously has really impacted the ability to respond. How does that, coupled with that additional data in the map, help you now, and how is that different than what you had before?
So we previously we did not have the RapidSOS portal that we used as a regular tool. We have an integrated feature of RapidSOS, which doesn't give us the additional data. So since we've moved to the platform and see the portal, we can see those additional map layers that will give us a more complete picture of what we're sending our first responders to. And the map is one more tool that layers onto the RapidSOS platform that helps us give proper information. So if a 911 call drops in and we're watching that person on the map move because you see the plot being followed, you can say, okay, you know, they're outside the school right now. The school map is right there. We have to open it up, and you can follow it as it goes. Or any call that has that critical incident mapping behind it. If it's a 911 caller who says, you know, the bank was just robbed or whatever it is the bank mapped? Are they gone? Are they still inside? Maybe we can open that up. So it gives our call taker the ability to look for additional information that they may not have known was there before, and then give our dispatcher that information to push out to those first responders, and not just one or two first responders, but all of them that we're sending. So it might be the police, it could be police, fire, and medical, and we can really all be on the same page going, versus maybe prior, if it's, you know, the officers have one version of the map, we have another version of a map, and then fire having the fire version, which shows where the HVAC stuff is at. Well, I don't really care as a police officer where HVAC stuff is, but that's very important for the fire department to know that. So having one map that really shows us one picture in a more complete way with RapidSOS, how that map has the different layers in it, is what is helping us build it. And we were able to start using the portal, and we are doing it very gradually, because it is a lot of information for our people. It's not something we gave them was like, here, use it, you have to do it. It's okay, let's train on this first part. All right, we've got that. Now it's time to move into the second part and really understand those layers. So when we are all on the same page, we are legitimately in the same book on that same page. So
Yeah, so a couple points that I think you touched on. You know, we have RapidSOS as an integration with a ton of public safety partners, which is huge and valuable, but that really complements the RapidSOS portal, or the RapidSOS portal complements that integration to be able to have that entire operating picture, and have a redundant tool also to get that data and have access to all of those pieces of information. And then the, you know, HVAC might not be important for you as a police responder or the 911 center, but it's important to fire. Mike, I know that you have the ability, and you guys work very closely with your customer base to make sure that you have a common operating picture, but you might have a customized, you know, layer or something for different response units if they need something specific in a map for fire versus the school versus the police. Can you kind of share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And Captain Miles really touched on this. Something that we believe very strongly in is a common map across all the different agencies. And what we've seen other firms do is they'll have it, the map can be changed by the end user. I believe that that's very dangerous, that you've got potentially a school administrator who is adjusting something in a platform that is then not being reflected across all the other platforms. And now, because that content's not common, by definition, we're no longer talking off of a common operating picture. And I think really the practitioners on the ground and the public safety telecommunicators understand that problem and ultimately how we're trying to solve that. So we do have the ability to, you know, every map is customized. You know, if we're walking through a very specific location, and let's say the hallways are color coded. You know, we got a green hallway, or, you know, or as Katelin spoke before about, you know, a specific corridor. We take the time to customize that map so that, again, the nomenclature is the same, and then everything gets built upon that layer that's locked, and then we could put as much additional information on top of it. A great partner of ours is Zero Eyes. I know we all partner with Zero Eyes. Well, their information is either layered into their system, or we're taking, you know, our data and it's integrated into there, so the nomenclatures are the same on top of that. We work very closely with another partner called I Love You Guys Foundation, extremely important foundation that relies heavily upon parent reunification with students post, you know, tragedy or post, you know, critical incident. And we're able to take their standard reunification protocols, overall, where we're going to move the children to, really the guts of the plan, and visualize that on top of the collaborative response graphic data. So we're taking what before was a 10-page written document, just like an NFL play would be designed. They don't literally type and text about how the quarterback's going to read and throw a ball. They just show X's and O's and they draw lines, because it's very simple. It's a visualized plan. So once we build our base data, all the interactive information can be put on top of that. But at the end of the day, the only way to have a common map is if the bottom layer is locked and it's common across all agencies.
Yeah, that's really important. That main layer, that main map is common across everybody. And then Jen, you kind of mentioned, having the field responders having the specific information they need. Well, this isn't necessarily related to the mapping. One thing that RapidSOS is also able to provide, and kind of as we layer on data, the responder location with our Axon partnership for police, with our I Am Responding partnership for fire primarily, and other users. But the ECC now actually has a visual of where those responders are coming into a scene, into that mapping detail, and also know exactly how far out they are to the scene of that incident. So I think that's a really important point to add to that data that's available in that common operating picture. As we're kind of coming up to the last 5 minutes, I want to give each of you an opportunity to share, how do you envision the evolution of emergency response technology kind of just growing and expanding over the next decade? What opportunities and challenges do you foresee or think we might have? And I'm going to kind of go backwards. We'll start with you, Katie, if you don't mind, and what you think on that question.
Well, no, I know, Amy, we talked and briefed a little bit last week about RapidSOS and kind of giving me the 411 on everything. And I already started talking to my local SROs to kind of implement that. You told me about the partnership, because I think that's actually, it's very huge for especially not only my guys in my department to be able to access the schools, and we do have older buildings, so it is harder for us, especially with all the alarm calls we get. So that would definitely be beneficial. But I just, like I told you, it's amazing to me. Like, if we had this, especially when you showed me the active assailant picture, is huge, because I know, we all know, especially who is in law enforcement, that you get calls from ECC. Oh, someone saw a gun, and it could be an injured squirrel. It can be something totally different than what the call came out. And to actually have that picture of that assailant and that gun, we know exactly what we're looking for. We can get to that threat. We can save and protect the public, and that's our job. So it's huge to me.
Yeah, I appreciate that. One thing I always say about that data, we in the 911 center, we've always got data. We're just now able to receive it in a different way. And the mapping is a huge part of that contextual data as well. So Jen, how do you see the evolution of emergency response over the next decade? Any opportunities or challenges that you might want to touch on?
So while technology is amazing, I think technology is our challenge, right? It's changing so rapidly, and keeping up with it is something that we're inundating our people with technology, and keeping it simple, keeping it like the X's and O's on a football playbook, and pushing that information out to our first responders on the most simple platform we can. So we stay talking the same language, from the same book, on the same page, is going to be our #1 challenge. When it comes to data, when it comes to information and technology, it's here. Like, what we used to think was the Jetsons, if you're old enough to know who the Jetsons are, all of that is here, right? So what is coming in the future is taking the technology that we have, putting it into a single package, everyone working together, like with those partnerships, regardless if you are competition normally, having it in one platform. So when we push it out, it's simple. It is not another overwhelming feature for that first responder to get to their emergency. Because when push comes to shove, you got to get there, right? That's the first part. You got to get there safely. You don't want someone on a phone or on their MDC trying to figure out where they're going, and then they crash their car, so they never get there. So getting in a simplified format and staying with the technology that exists, because it's going to just keep moving forward, and it's coming like a freight train. It's not slowing down. So
it is coming. Mike, what would you add to the evolution of emergency response technology that we have?
I couldn't agree more with what Captain Miles is talking about keeping it simple. And, at the end, we don't want to make a more difficult situation difficult by trying to overload the individual, responder to that location. I look heavily at the indoor space, the indoor mapping space. That is our profession. We see tremendous growth there. More emergencies are unfortunately happening indoors. That data is becoming more, people are understanding it, accepting it. We're seeing tremendous growth of, starts with schools and grows from there. And then ultimately, I believe that's going to lead into the 3D environment. As we talk about everybody wanting to plot in the X, Y, and Z axis, having good, reliable indoor data is going to make that important. So I see that as a big growth area. And then also really the acceptance of mobile applications as departments accept that capability, start issuing more department issued phones, the ability to have an officer detether from a vehicle and bring this with them. It's got, more computing power than we initially took to the moon. that's an important tool that someone could use out in the field. So I think we'll see a tremendous growth and acceptance with that over time within the space.
Yeah, so much more that we could talk about, but I know we are right on time. So Mike, Jen, Katie, thank you so much. We really thank you for being here, sharing your thoughts and insight. We're grateful to have you as part of the RapidSOS Ready community. If anybody has questions, feel free to reach out to me via email, amarion@rapidsos.com, or on LinkedIn. And we have more sessions coming up, so be sure to join in and join us on the platform for engagement. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.